everybody. Welcome to the Fire It Up with CJ show. Today we have Derek Rydall, and we're talking about his newest book, The Abundance Project, 40 Days to More Wealth. No, hold it up. Hold it up. Let's see it. 40 Days to More Wealth, Health, Love, and Happiness. So welcome. It's great to have you on the show. Woo!
Isn't it pretty? Isn't
It
it pretty?
really is. It is.
Yeah,
I love that. I love the image of the tree because your other one had an image of the tree too, didn't
that's
it?
right.
Like,
Yeah.
is that an image that's important to you?
You know, I didn't realize just how important it was. It's become ever important as a symbol for me. Yeah. I
Mm,
used to always be really attracted or interested or in the tree in the Garden of Eden. There was something
mm,
about that symbol. And then yeah, with the Emergence book, the work of the oak tree and the whole idea that this massive oak comes out of this little acorn and that it's all in there waiting to emerge. And when I began to work with this, again, this idea, and we'll talk about it, I'm sure, the idea that wealth and abundance is not dollars and things, just like it's not the fruit of a tree. It's actually the tree itself is the wealth and the invisible mechanism that allows it to produce fruit out of ultimately seemingly nothing. And so it's like, wow, there's this tree, the tree of life, the tree as a metaphor. So yeah, and of course, from a marketing and publishing standpoint, they were like, no, we have to have a tree. We have to, people have to know that it's the same theme. It's a continuation of
right,
of of the original, book because the book was a bestseller. So there's that. They always wanted to, keep
right.
the
Brand
keep the
identity.
party going, keep the
Yeah.
brand going. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, it's
But it
funny
works in
because
this case. Yeah, works in this case.
it does. I think so but because your other tree didn't necessarily have fruit on this particular tree, but I think the
Correct.
fruit, the first cover. But I like the idea of fruit because it actually does give you a sense of bearing fruit. Like that is
Exactly.
ultimately, if
Exactly.
we are an acorn that grows into the tree, and if we are healthy and well and fed and watered and loved, then we bear fruit, which is the whole
Exactly.
abundance idea. So I love that you riffed off of that. When I was a little kid,
Yeah.
I was obsessed with trees. I used to draw trees over and over and over again, and
I think I did too.
it was kind of weird. That's a weird little
And I used to
similarity.
climb them too. I used to always climb them. I was always looking for the tallest tree to climb, the next tallest tree, the next tallest tree.
Yeah,
I'm
isn't
sure
that?
I'm sure it took a few years off my mom's life. She's still alive. She's still alive, but I still have time to give them back to her. But they, but no, for some reason, I just wanted to climb to the tallest top of the tallest tree, and where it's so tall that it's like waving in the wind, and you're like
Yeah.
bending 100 feet in the air. But
I love
anyways,
it. Yeah, I used to swing underneath the tree. So similar kind of obsession with trees. So that we
yeah,
share. We also share your book of emergence was right around the time in which I was having my own emergence. So even though yours had probably happened years before, it was perfectly divinely timed. And in fact, in my journal that I journal every day, I took the questions that you asked, like what is trying to emerge, what is trying to. You had
yeah,
a set of questions that were asked at the very end of each chapter, and I literally took those questions, and in the morning, I would, in my case, I would muscle test, which is kind of my intuitive.
right,
Do you know what muscle testing is? It's a
sure,
way for you to
sure,
intuitively have some higher self, maybe even your body self, some aspect of yourself lead you to what question to
absolutely,
answer. So I would muscle test, pick the question that from your book on the emergence, and then answer that question from the inside. And so.
yes,
Um, Not surprisingly, your current book is perfectly timed yet again to where I'm in the next part of my journey. I am fully on with the lifestyle, mindset, and attitude. I'm fully on and embracing it. I don't know if I'm
yes,
fully living it. I'm trying
right,
hard, but it's a hard way of undoing, years and years.
of course,
But I didn't know the very first time I interviewed that this was as a result, your aha moment came from a near death experience at age 20, which I don't think I knew about. I was like, what? When I was
yeah.
reading this book. So, what
Oh, didn't,
happened at age
yeah,
20?
yeah. Well, I did talk about it in the first book, in Emergence,
Yeah, I
when I
just I
almost,
didn't interview you on it
yeah,
for whatever
that's
reason. It
true.
didn't
It's
hit
true.
me.
Yeah, and by the way, you said, my emergence happened a while ago. It actually is ongoing.
Yeah.
We're always emerging, just like in the Christian teachings, it says you have to die daily and be reborn again. That, unfortunately, Christians misunderstand that to mean it's a one-time deal.
Yeah.
One and done. I died and I'm reborn. Now I'm good to go. No, I'm
Right.
sorry. It's ongoing, baby. Every day
I
you got to
know.
die a little bit more to the old and let go of that shell of the old seed and keep growing and emerging and growing and letting go and emerging. The minute you stop emerging, you start stagnating, you start diminishing, and you start dying. And we'll talk more about that today because the key, and I'll talk about the near death thing, but I wanted to make this connection because I think it's really important that people kind of strap in and put their seatbelt on for this thing called life. Sorry, I just jogged before this interview and I've got a lot of circulation going on. But they think it's like, okay, I'm going to get to a point and now I'm done.
Right.
Why am I still dealing with this again? Why is this coming up again? I thought I was done with this, or, I'm too old for this, or somehow that's a sign of failure, or that I didn't do it right the first time. And it's really important to know that growth, letting go, growing, it's a spiral.
Upward.
And imagine you have a spiral, and on that spiral, like you show up here, you have certain experiences, and that spiral is kind of like a map. And it's got all these little points, these little issues, these little things on it. And your whole life is going to be about you going around that spiral over and over and over again, and then just refining. But it's spiraling up.
Yeah.
And so you keep cycling around, recapitulating, and little bit by little bit until there's no more spiral. It's just a little point, and then poof, and that's ultimately true liberation.
Right.
But so you keep repeating those cycles, and they're like lessons that recur. But every time they refine us and define us, and we let it go a little bit more. So it's important to know that that's never going to stop. So let go of that now, and now you can relax a little bit and know that this is just the way it is. Whether you're Jesus or Buddha or Mother Teresa or whoever, their work never stopped, and yours won't either. Or whoever Edison, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Oprah. They're just because they're wealthy and famous doesn't mean they're not still dealing with some really deep stuff and a need to grow. Whether they're saying yes to it or not, I don't know. So I just thought that's an
No,
important thing.
I get it. Like mine is like, oh, I'm surrendering. Well, I've surrendered, so why haven't I?
Yeah.
Oh no, you've got to surrender again.
Yeah,
Surrender
exactly.
again. Let go again.
Exactly.
Let go of control. I mean, it's and I
Exactly.
don't really know when you get to that single pointed when you are an enlightened, but I hope.
Well, even that is a misunderstanding. Enlightenment isn't a static thing. It's not like you reach a point and you're done. Jesus is not done. If you believe in Jesus or Buddha or Krishna or Lao Tzu or Kuan Yin or Shankara, they're not done because the idea of who we are is infinite and it's inexhaustible. And, it's just forever unfolding. So it's just relative. It's all relative. So I think that can help us let go of a lot of the stress and the struggle and the fear and setting ourselves up for this deep sense of disappointment and disillusionment, which often is what causes people to give up.
Right.
Is because they're like, I thought it wasn't supposed to be this hard. Shouldn't it? If it's hard, it's not right. Or I shouldn't have to go through it again. It's not right. So I'm going to change my path. I'm going to change course. I'm going to try something else. And they just keep going in a loop without growing because they don't think that it should be like this.
Right.
And it's really important that people that are trying to develop and grow and become more and emerge just know that it is supposed to be like this. It is supposed to be hard. It is ongoing. There's no end to it. And in the midst of that, the real mastery is not getting rid of that. It's becoming okay with that. It's no longer letting that knock you off course. It's like, oh yeah, I feel some tremendous pain coming up. This is really hard. I'm dealing with this stuff again. Cool. All right. Hey, anger. Hey, sadness. Come on in. Let me make you a cup of tea. Let's have a chat.
Right.
And then the master is not free of that. They're just free of the resistance to that.
Yeah.
And
There's
that's what's really different.
two people that I've interviewed. Joseph Goldstein, who is this incredible scholar of Buddhist mindfulness and wisdom, and I asked him, "Are you enlightened?" And he said, "I'm lightening up." Which I thought
Lightening
was
up,
really interesting.
exactly.
And the other person who has been spent literally almost their whole lives devoted to meditation, mindfulness, Buddhist practice is Lama Surya Das. And the
Hmm.
interesting thing is when I noticed when I interviewed them, I'd say, so don't you ever get mad? And he's like, yeah, I get mad sometimes when the Red Sox don't win. And I'm like, what do you do? And he's like, I yell at a tree, you know. and, and I
Poor
said,
tree.
yeah, no, but he said, because the tree can take, but
The
what was
tree can
interesting,
take
the
it,
tree can
exactly.
take it. And what was interesting is I asked him, like, like stuff that most of us would get upset about, like going in traffic and getting upset. And I'd asked him to go there. And the minute he went there and he went like up like that, like the spiral that you're talking about. He went there and literally in a nanosecond, he was out
Yeah.
literally in like 1 second after he mentioned the thing, his emotion, he was able, because he's programmed his driving pattern to drive out of that mindless story
Right.
generation thing to get
Yeah.
to kind of an enlightened spot right away. And I just thought that that was fascinating. So I do think, even though this journey may feel like arduous and hard, you do get if there is a better, like you do get a different
Yeah.
perspective each time, and the amount of time
Totally.
it takes for you to get to a
Totally.
heightened spot. Because otherwise
That's
it,
it.
otherwise it would feel futile to me. Like,
Well,
why
that's
do I
it. It's
keep
like
on climbing this mountain that never
exactly.
ends?
And I never get any better at it.
right,
It's just it's Sisyphus with the boulder up the mountain. I
right,
just have to roll it back up again, and it rolls back down, and nothing changes. That's called hell. That
right.
is hell. That is stagnation. Yeah, it's true. It's like, like when you exercise. If you haven't exercised, when you have to run up those stairs suddenly or walk up, you're like, and then
Right.
you do that every day for a while. Eventually, it still gets your heart pumping, but it recovers faster.
Yes.
And so that's the difference. You react to something. There's no separation. There's no space, and it might as well be all that exists. And then you work on it. You're mindful. You create a little space around the pattern. Now you react, but you get out of it quicker. And then eventually the pattern arises. You are aware of it before you react. You now have what's the first beginning of real choice, because you don't have free will or choice until you have expanded awareness. Now you have responsibility, which is the
Mm-hmm.
ability to choose your response rather than to react. And as you observe it, it falls back down again. You don't have to vent it or give expression to it. It might still keep bubbling up, but now you're not giving it form. And eventually you reclaim all of its energy. It gets transmuted. And that pattern does no longer arise for the most part. So, and then a new one does. And then
Right.
eventually, when you get done with all your patterns, you will start to work on the universal patterns.
Yeah.
You'll start working on your ancestors' patterns. You'll start liberating the patterns of your family. And that's, which is the deeper esoteric meaning of Jesus died for our sins. He was just working on some big stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He had done he had completed his personal stuff, and he was working on some bigger universal stuff. As was Buddha. And you hear about masters who suddenly will take on the karma of their community and get cancer, and then they'll process it through their body, or sometimes they'll leave their body. So there's no end to it, but we do get more
right.
adept and masterful at no longer taking any of it personal. We
Right.
realize it's not my pain, it's not my suffering, it's the pain, the suffering, and I am free of all of that, but I'm holding it. I'm the
Mm-hmm.
sky, and these are clouds and storms and birds passing through my sky. So
Mm-hmm.
I can hold it, I can witness it, I can be with it, I can give it what it needs, but it doesn't have anything to do with my identity. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what progressively happens.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. So
what an interesting conversation
well,
we're having.
well, I think what's interesting is that it goes back to the one of the concepts you talk about, the law of abundance. I do want to circle back to your near death experience, but it seems like
Definitely.
what's evolved is this idea of the that it is all within us. I mean, one of the things that you mentioned in your book is that we are the universe. Inside we are the
Yes.
container, and
Yes.
inside of us is that
Yes.
abundance
Yes.
and of the
Yes.
universe and the gifts of the
Yes.
universe, and it's just a matter of just realizing that we aren't separate. And I love
Yeah.
the story that you gave, because the story that you gave reinforced that. So it's like, I first started off as like CJ in my universe and all the things that are wrong with that person and this person and that person, and I'm going to improve myself, right? Which is where we should, I think, start, right? Because if we don't, and one of the things that you pointed out in your book, I don't have the books, I'm just pointing at a piece of paper, but the
Yes.
thing in your book, so in your
People are
book,
like, that's his book. That's
yeah,
what we're here for.
it's
That's pretty
two
lame.
pages.
That's pretty lame. But you just typed it out and made a Xerox copy of it. Hey, I'm an author. I'm emerging. I'm emerging. Yeah.
But I
Better than
love that story about how it's like, it's, you start off with yourself, and you even mentioned this in the book, like you can't give unless you've actually completely. There's something in the book about like,
law
yes,
of
it'd be
circulation.
great to give, but if you don't, what was that quote in the book? I can't remember.
Well, the law of circulation, which says you can't give what you don't have,
Yes.
and then you can't keep what you don't give, and you cannot sustain what you don't receive. And it's all about the circulation, which we definitely will dive into. Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is this is probably fundamentally, there's really only there's only one problem in all of human existence, and that is our belief or perception that we're separate from everything we want and need, and that there's some other life or power separate from us that can take it from us or hurt us or give it to us. So
Mm-hmm.
that sense of separation is the only problem, bottom line, full stop. And the only solution to all of our human problems is the dissolving of that sense of separation from life, source, God, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter what you call it, because whatever you call it is not its name anyway. So,
Right.
but what matters is that you call it forth. So that's it. So the greatest revelation of all the great teachings is that it's all, you're one with it. It's all within you. And the irony, of course, is that is what Jesus taught, and that is not what Christian teaching ever teaches.
Mm-hmm.
So they missed the number one point of his whole ministry,
Mm-hmm.
which is that the kingdom of heaven is within you. He said that according to the documents, if you're going to believe any of it. Buddha called it nirvana, Jesus called it heaven, Lao Tzu called it the Tao, Krishna, whatever. But it's the same thing. So that we're not really in the world, but the whole world is in us.
Mm-hmm.
The whole world is in our consciousness, that we're not merely a body. We're not in a body. The body is in our field of consciousness. And that we are literally moving, we are points of awareness moving around through the landscape of our consciousness. And as we do that, it manifests as experience. As our attention moves through the landscape of our consciousness, that awareness manifests as an experience. We call that a life, we call that a world, we call that a relationship, but it's all really a manifestation of our consciousness.
Mm.
And there is only one consciousness, but we are all individual points within that one consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can never get outside of your consciousness. You can never have an experience separate from your consciousness.
Mm.
You only ever experiencing your consciousness. And so there's that. And that is the fundamental rock bottom foundation of all the great teachings.
Yeah.
And it's also really, really weird and woo-woo and down the rabbit hole and very hard to get our mind around for the average person. And it's important that we also understand that if we're going to be teachers or even if we're going to be students. And then we have to go, okay, great, Derek, that's all well and good, but what the hell is that going to help me to pay my rent or heal my back pain or deal with my son on drugs or with my partner that wants to leave me? And that's a really valid and important question. And we don't want to do the airy-fairy spiritual bypass thing that a lot of new age gobbledygook does, which is, oh, just trust, let go and let God, all of life is for you, blah, blah, blah. Because that's actually a form of malpractice to the individual that's struggling and suffering. It doesn't really help. So this is the challenge we have. There's this big truth, and then it's how do we boil it down into practical, applicable terms that get real results, that actually set us free and actually allow us to have an ever increasing, ever improved experience of life.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it doesn't allow that on some level, it's not valid.
Right.
And
But it's a view in which all, I think it may be woo woo and such, but it's a view in which all this 40 days is based off of. So, right. And I
Yeah,
think
I'm
actually,
not trying to diminish my own teaching ideas.
right. No,
I just want people to know that I understand how it's inspiring. I love this stuff. I can go down the rabbit hole all day. But my journey and what I think is unique or different perhaps is I'm not just about sharing inspiring and wow theories about life and principles, which there are a lot of people that do that, and it's a wonderful Dharma talk. But now, how do we actually use it almost scientifically and understand it in a very everyday way so that we get results? Because the more results we get, the more we'll practice. And the
hmm
more we practice, the more results we get, and the more we'll actually embody the truth. This
right.
is why Jesus was going around healing people and feeding people. He didn't have to prove anything. He wasn't like, look at me, I'm so powerful. In fact, it was the opposite. In the desert, his temptation was he was tempted to use his powers to prove that he was special, and he had to keep saying no to that. He was
Mm-hmm.
doing it to demonstrate the veracity of the teaching, to say, guys, there's something real here.
Mm-hmm.
So don't get caught up in the loaves and fishes and healings, but use that as an example so you can believe in the teaching.
Mm.
That's why he said, did I heal people? Did I raise people from the dead? Come on, dude. Do you really not believe that what I'm doing is real? So that's the value, is we want it to be, it has to be practical so that we can own it and believe it and then actually live it. So
Right.
anyways, I don't
All
want to
right.
go too far on that, but I think it's an important thing because a lot of people are suffering and struggling.
Right.
And I know I'm teaching a class right now with, gosh, almost 700 people in it. And um, they are struggling and they're in a lot of pain. People are really in pain. And sometimes it hurts even more to hear about these great possibilities and to not
Mm.
really know how to do it.
Right.
So
Okay, well, let's
that,
actually dive into that. I was going to ask you a different set of questions. Forget about these. So let's go.
I have no idea what we're going to talk about.
I have I have a rough idea. I read the book. I don't know where we're going, but let's actually let.
I never let my idea of what I'm going to talk about get in the way of the
Neither
experience.
am I. Okay, so let's actually go into some of the kind of more pragmatic things that are in your book. So, one of the things that you talk about are blind spots, which are, so you're in a group of 700 people. Clearly, there are going to be a lot of manifestations about blind spots that they have. So, first of all, can you explain the concept of,
Yeah.
what do you see as, you describe blind spot as stuck in limitation or lack. So, I know that you have 700 people in a class, but do you see a theme of what's emerging as maybe even a societal sense of what's happening?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What do you see?
And I will go down the rabbit hole a little more at one point soon to share the foundation for the abundance
Yeah. Yeah.
principles. People really have a framework that is important. But yeah, the biggest challenge we have now and have always had, once you begin to believe that everything's within you and that circumstances, the core idea of emergence was that life isn't happening to you, it's happening through you and it's coming from you. And wherever you go, you can only meet what you bring. And whatever you're waiting for, you're waiting with and you're weighing it down. And so this is the ultimate weight loss program, I like
hmm
to say. And because it's all within you.
Yeah.
That's true. And so what people are struggling with is that we've been so conditioned to believe in conditions. And how that works is that, and that's also why Jesus said, do not judge by appearances. But we are in our challenge. We don't have the money for rent, or our husband left us with 3 kids, or our body is breaking down, and we're full of fear and anger and resentment, and we're even trying to do the work, and it doesn't seem to be working, and we just are in that state. And the reason, and what the problem is that we're so conditioned to look at our condition, whether it's a mental, emotional, or physical condition, financial condition, relational condition, societal condition, and then let that determine what we believe is true. Let that determine what we believe is possible. Let that determine how we feel about ourselves and about life. And then let that emotion determine what we actually do about it.
hmm
And that's called emotional reasoning. It's a cognitive disorder, which is that we've been conditioned to believe that what I feel determines what I do, but what I feel is based on what I believe about what I see.
Mm-hmm.
And so that it's a complete loop.
Mm-hmm.
And what we have to begin to recondition ourselves out of is what we're seeing in our condition is not true. It's
Mm-hmm.
not true at all. Even if it's amazing, it's still not true. It's a relative projection of the infinite perfection at best, but it's not true. It's a coagulated thought form. That's it. Our conditions are just the evidence that thinking has been there. A thinker has passed through here and it leaves a trail called an experience, a condition. And just like a boat leaves a wake in the wake of the boat, but the wake of the boat is not driving the boat. It's the individual, their current energy and the current direction they're steering the boat. That's what's driving it. So our condition is the wake of our previous thinking, and it's not driving the boat. It's not
Mm-hmm.
driving our life. So we have to begin to practice that. We have to begin to see the problem, see the issue, see how it's triggering our feelings and beliefs and the meanings and stories. Seeing how intensely attached we are to being engaged in that story, and wrestling with that story, and either trying to convince people it's true how bad life is. I want to prove how wronged I've been, or try to wrestle with it and make it something else.
Mm.
Both of those are um, it's a no-win situation. It's why
Mm-hmm.
Buddha talked about the need fundamentally to let go of craving and aversion.
Mm-hmm.
Craving is trying to get something more. Aversion is trying to get rid of something.
Mm-hmm.
Both are forms of trying to manipulate your condition, your
Mm-hmm.
experience. And as long as you do that, you're stuck in that illusion as a character in a drama, and you can never get out.
Mm.
So that's the biggest challenge I see at various levels is people want to grow and change, but then they get sucked back in again. But my rent, but my body, but my kid, but life. Look at how bad it is. How can you say it's not bad? And all of that. And then the emotion rises, and then they're caught in the victim state, and that's fundamentally it. They're victims.
Mm.
They believe they're being victimized. They believe people are being victimized.
Mm-hmm.
They believe you're not a good person if you don't admit people are
Mm.
being victimized.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have sympathy for them, you're not a good person.
Mm.
And they don't understand that sympathy, when you're sympathetic, you vibrate at the same level of, now you're stuck in the
Mm.
ditch with them, and now you're no good to them.
Mm.
So and that's true for the person you are sympathizing, and when you're sympathizing for yourself, which is called pity.
Mm-hmm.
And so I understand it. I have tremendous compassion for it, and I get stuck in it all the time. But that's the biggest challenge I see,
Mm.
is that we're just so conditioned to judge by appearances and then to continue to give the appearances energy.
Mm-hmm.
And what we have to do is pull away and realize that what's real is invisible. What's real, the real, you cannot see, touch, taste, or measure. The scientific thing, if you
Mm-hmm.
can't see it and
Mm-hmm.
measure it, it's not
Right.
real.
Right.
Exactly the opposite. If you can see it and measure it, that's not real. The Big Bang, there was nothing, and then there was everything. All stuff came out of non-stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All that is visible came out of that which is invisible.
Mm.
You're designed the same way. You're designed to create the way the universe creates, which
Mm-hmm.
is not, the universe doesn't look at the condition and go, what's possible here based on these limited conditions? No. The universe doesn't even know about the condition. It just goes, what's in me? What's true here? What's the idea that I want to express? And then bam, the universe expresses it.
Mm.
That's how you were designed.
Mm.
And so there's something that's trying to emerge in us. There's a vision of power and possibility and beauty and abundance. And we have to train ourselves to become more invested and interested in that than we are in what we can see, taste, touch, and measure.
Mm-hmm.
And as the old metaphysical axiom goes, when you believe more in what you don't see than what you do see, then what you do see, you won't see, and what you don't see, you will see.
Mm-hmm.
So it flips.
Right.
And this is what Jesus was trying to say when he was like, heaven is at hand. You guys keep saying, when's it going to come? What's it going to look like? He's like, it's not going to be low here, low there. It's within you. It's at hand. But having eyes, you can't see it. Having ears, you can't hear it. So he's trying to say, it's a different set of vision. It's a different set of skills. It's a different set of senses. You have to develop the soul senses, the
Mm.
ability to see in the dark, the ability to see the invisible, to hear the inaudible, to touch the intangible. And as you develop that, which is the true mark of any visionary, whether you're a creator, an artist, an innovator, a leader, or even a mother. You know how like a mother just their child might be crazy, but they just know, they see it, they feel it, they know who this kid really is. And as they're able to hold that space and not get sucked into the drama, that child now has the greatest condition
Mm.
for emergence. So we all have the capacity to do it. It's not that woo woo. We just are so caught in our conditions and we haven't been given the proper teaching to know how to develop this new way of living, walking more from insight than eyesight.
Mm.
So, so that's the biggest challenge I see, that I'm working to help people learn this new skill, learn how to be more interested in what's emerging than what's already there, and give that energy, give that power, begin to speak from that rather than speak to the condition.
Mm.
Stop telling your big condition about your little potential and stop being afraid of what you're facing and start telling those conditions to be afraid of what they're facing, because they're facing a power that is immense, and that's you.
Mm.
And and so that's the work. I know it's a very long answer, but that's the biggest challenge I find in helping pull a person out of the downward spiral, the inertia of being caught in conditions, and ultimately pulling them out of that so that they can begin to be anchored in what's emerging,
Okay,
and stay anchored there until it starts to shift their experience.
so let's take your own personal experience. Let's take a recent one that actually prompted you writing this book, where you got a text message unexpectedly from your wife that said, "Hey, I need a double mastectomy. I have breast cancer,
Yeah.
and it needed to be done. Her surgery needed to be done on the same day that you were planning on dropping your son off to college, and so."
Yeah.
In terms of, easily going into victimhood, sympathy, going into a spiral of feelings, and then believing all those conditions, because there's so much about cancer and about kids. There's a whole
Oh yeah.
story about,
Oh yeah.
dropping your eldest off to college. There's a whole
Yeah.
story about cancer. And so here you are, have had, years under your belt. You reached one point, and this is
Yeah.
a
And
life
I
experience.
had in my book Emergence was due to the publisher simultaneously.
Okay.
All of it.
Okay. Okay. So you have these three things that are considered. Any one of them would be like kind of a challenge, an epic challenge, and so you have all three of these things simultaneously.
Yeah.
You're at this one point, and you're given an opportunity to arise at a different point. So
Mm-hmm.
when you were at that juncture, you just finished a book on emergence. Had what did you yourself go through, and how did you remove the conditions? What were you feeling, the story, and how did you move away from those and get to a different kind of a metacognitive place where you could
Yeah.
see all these things in a different level?
Yeah, and meta for people that don't know, yeah, metacognition is basically the ability to think about what you're thinking about, to
Mm.
observe your own thought processes. Um, the It was hard,
Yeah.
and and it was painful, and I cried a lot. And I think I said in the book, The Abundance Project, when I dropped my son off, and had to finally say goodbye, I turned around so he wouldn't see his dad fall apart as I walked to the car. And then as I was driving home, suddenly what was clear skies was literally a horrible thunderstorm suddenly
Wow.
broke out in the sky. Like literally, I'm like, really, really, God? Okay, this is a little dramatic, a little on the nose here. It's a little on the nose. It's like, oh my God, what's my life going to be? Thunder, lightning, and it's pouring outside and it's pouring inside the car because I'm just like, "Ugh." I cried for like 3 hours. I could literally barely see because the windshield is just gone with rain. It's pouring so hard,
Oh,
and
wow.
my own inner windshield is just covered. And I'm like, Oh, I can't see. What am I going to do?
Oh,
I'm going to die. I'm not going to even make it home. So it was intense, and my practice has allowed me to let all that be okay. So there was a part of me that was metacognitively aware, observing Derek falling apart, but observing it so that I never became lost in it. And
mm,
that's really critical. But I let it unfold. I let Derek have his feelings. I let the situation be what it is. You know, like an actor who knows he's playing a part, but he lets the part be played fully. And then it's actually, in a very interesting way, a wonderful cathartic experience. Like, I was an actor, and I would do scenes where I was a method actor, and I would be sobbing or raging,
wow.
and I would really be having those emotions. There was nothing fake about it. But because I knew it was a play, I knew I was an actor, I could be fully in it, but not of it, not
Mm,
lost in it. I didn't lose my identity in it. And that's the way I approach this
mm,
stuff now. Um, and it's not always easy. Sometimes the pain or the situation is so intense, and it was during this period, that I would get sucked in for a moment, get lost, and then, like the heart that's been trained, I would recover quicker. I would get back out of it. I'd be able to observe it, but let the energy keep circulating and flowing and transforming and transmuting. So, in those kinds of times, I had to practice. So I practiced a lot. And, I got down like James Brown, with God and with truth. And that's essential that we do that. And that's the other thing that I have to remind people is there's no magic bullet here. Now, sometimes what appears to be miraculous and magical absolutely happens. And it's because, for whatever reason, we surrender so completely, or we have put in so much work in beforehand, like turning up the pressure on a hose over and over until the pressure is full blown, but there's so many kinks in the hose that nothing's coming out. And so it's all there ready. And then we start to do the work, and then the hose gets unkinked, and it's like a fire hose suddenly in our life. Change happens rapidly. So it can happen very, very rapidly. But what I had to discover and practice, and help people to understand is sometimes, again, because my priority is to do the work and to grow, to my love for the truth and to be an ever greater, pure instrument of the truth, more than I want. In fact, this has been a prayer of mine for 25 years.
wow.
More than I want to change, fix, heal, control, manipulate anyone or anything, including myself. I want to know the truth that makes me free and see what is ultimate reality. More
Mm,
than I want to fix anything, heal anything, change anything, including me, I want to wake up. And that foundational, that foundation is what ultimately kicks in, so that
mm,
that's my priority. So if I have to stop and pray 100 times a day, and meditate, or even if it's just 1 minute at a time, what I call the 1 minute mystic, I'll do that. Or if I have to take the whole day off and clear my schedule, no matter who it pisses off, and just sit in my space and just do the work, to take it to, then I'll do that.
mm,
And that's the level of commitment we need ultimately if we really want to grow and change,
mm-hmm.
because otherwise the inertia of these old patterns, and the 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 inertia and the force of the appearances of the world, it's just too strong. It's just, now it's not stronger than you, but it's stronger right now because we haven't built the muscles, right? And the way we build the muscles is by lifting those reps
Mm-hmm.
of doing the work while we're under that weight of the
Right,
world.
right.
When we're carrying the weight of the world, don't pray that the weight gets lighter. Pray that you get stronger, and then start doing some reps.
Yeah, so you double
That's
down. You're like
I double down,
my life
double down.
sucks. I hit like three tragic things, like work, family, everything like hit
Yeah,
simultaneously, and now I need to double down on my prayer and meditation, because
yeah,
that is the only way that you can reach your prayer, right? So the prayer is
yeah.
about, I don't want to control, fix. So it's like, I don't have to control the situation. My wife has cancer, my kid's leaving, my book is, I don't need to fix anything. I don't need to heal
Right.
anything. Just, as I understand, this is your prayer, is like, just please allow me to, see clearly, be free of this.
Yeah. It's both. It's both. So here's the truth is that there's nothing is wrong. Nothing is broken. The truth is that, and that's again, I know I talk a lot about Jesus. I like the teachings of Jesus, and I just know a lot about that. So for those of you that are like recovering Catholics
Right.
or don't like Christianity, this is not a Christian teaching. Jesus wasn't a Christian, by the way. He was a Jew, but and his name wasn't Jesus either. Just to say, because it couldn't have been. There was no such name in that time. Just I'm going to write a book. His name was not Jesus, and other myths broken. But the um, yeah, I mean, I was doing the work, and the truth is that, like if you look at some of the clues when he's healing people, somebody will come to him with like a crippled arm, and he says, "What hinders you? Stretch forth your arm." In other words, from his perception, there was no problem. He saw the perfection, the perfect idea, the perfect pattern. So, and that's actually why
Mm.
he could heal. He was awake from the hypnotic spell of material appearances. He didn't see a dead person with the Lazarus. He said, Lazarus isn't dead. He's sleeping. Wake up, man. Get up. Pick up your bed and walk, dude. He just kept walking around going, I'm going to count backwards from 3 to 1, and then I'm going to snap my fingers. You're going to wake up. 3, 2, 1. Wake up. Pick up your bed. Get up. Stretch out your hand. Open your eyes. You're not blind. Come on. God isn't blind. So he saw the truth,
Hmm.
and he was just that awake guy, like a
Hmm.
guy walking around in a lucid dream, and everybody else in the dream is sleeping. He's awake. That's it. That's it. And when they asked Buddha, what are you? Are you a prophet, a master, a healer? He just said, I'm awake. And
Mm.
so, when you're in a dream and you're afraid of all the monsters and suddenly you wake up in the dream, you become lucid.
Right.
Are you afraid of anything anymore? No. You know it's a dream. You can still enjoy it. You can still touch things. It feels real. You can eat food, kiss people. You can do whatever you want. In fact, you can do a lot more than you ever thought you could do. You can fly. You can walk
Right.
through walls,
Right.
right? But because you're awake, and that's the only thing that ultimately we're seeking to become. There's nothing to add to reality. Whatever you believe, God or this, again, Genesis says, in the beginning was the Word, and God was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word made everything, and God named it all good, and nothing was made without the Word. And that was it. Creation is done. It's done. Creation is done. There's no way to add to it, and there's no way to diminish it. There's just an ever greater awakening to what it is. And then as we awaken and see it, we become it, we manifest it, and we experience it. So,
Mm.
so that's what that prayer is about. It's about training myself to not get entangled in the relative appearances of things, and to increasingly wake up to the real idea, the real pattern, the real potential that's here.
Right.
But that does not preclude working hard. It doesn't preclude trying to do stuff. So even during that time, I'm setting myself free in consciousness. But, it's not like you're suddenly just going to be sitting around on a lily pad contemplating your navel and doing nothing. I was busier than ever. I was more active than ever. And I was doing whatever I could to help people, to help my wife, to help my daughter, who was also like, what the heck's going on? To help my son, who's like, is mom going to be alive when I come home on spring
Mm.
break? Like, I had to do a lot. I had to work a lot. I had to get shit done, for lack of a better word.
Right.
Um, so it's not either or, it's both. It's
Hmm.
simultaneously holding the space of truth and freedom and willingness to be free, and what's in front of me that I need to do now.
Hmm.
So that's what allowed me to get through it, and also keep being productive and keep getting things done.
Hmm.
And as a result of that refinement, I did grow in a whole new level. I'll share something else too, which is interesting and ironic. A result of that experience, which was one of my most difficult, maybe the most difficult experience I've ever had up to that point, it set me on another course of deep growth and deep
Mm.
development within my relationship with my wife, that ultimately led to me completing my contract with my wife and
Mm.
ultimately divorcing a
Oh,
couple years
wow.
later. Yeah.
Wow.
So just when I thought I was done, it was like, oh, not so fast, kid. And it was like suddenly there was a whole new level and that bumped up against my truly deepest fear, which was losing my family, losing my home, losing everything I built. And what the challenge I was given, and this is going to directly tie into the Abundance Project if we have any more time to talk about
Yeah.
it. And we do have a little more time, and I think this is really important. I know that we're going deep in this, but I think this is so important, and I trust it. But what I had to confront was I had to ultimately, I'd gotten so strong in my commitment to the truth. More than I want to fix, change, manipulate, control anything, I want to know the truth, be a stand for the truth, be a transparency of the truth, wake up to the truth. And that was so entrenched in me that eventually I could not honor that,
Mm.
as scary and difficult as it was. And when it looked like I was going to lose everything that I'd built,
Mm.
everything.
Mm.
My kids would hate me. I would lose the love of my life, the family I'd built, the home, the finances, everything. And I had to now deal with finding the truth about all of those parts of my life inside of me. I had to find
Wow.
the love, the power, the abundance, the home, the family, and again on a deeper level, discover all of that was actually in me. This is where we
Mm.
started. Like
Wow.
that, like it's a big nice concept. You're not in the world's in you. Yay, let's burn some incense and sit in lotus. No, it's much deeper than that. I had to
Right.
now actually back up I had to walk my talk in a deeper way than I ever thought I
Wow.
would. And I got to a place where I was like, okay, I'm good now. And the contract, seemed to be complete. I thought I was leaving in a way that was, it was messy, but I thought this is the right thing. And then I proceeded to have another 2 years, which was indeed the darkest night of my life,
Wow.
where everything did fall apart. I did temporarily lose my home and my family and my kids and reputation and all this stuff. I was still doing my work, but it all fell apart. And there was day to day, I didn't know if I was even going to wake up the next day.
Wow.
And I'm saying all this to say because I get how painful this can be. And when I'm speaking to people about you can do it, this is not some airy fairy teacher
Like
going,
I did it.
I like I did it, or even lacking an understanding and giving you some Pollyanna BS. It's from somebody who's been in the real trenches, even of late, and had to do the work, stay in my practice, even when I thought I might literally die
Wow.
and literally not be here the next day. And I had to even work at the level where I began to have experiences where I was also free and okay if I did leave my body and leave this plane and be done with it. And that's crazy. But I got
Yeah.
to that state by doing the practice. And then, little bit by little bit, all of that deep roots that I had been building during that dark night, which is what we're doing, that tree began to blossom again.
Wow.
And
Okay.
all that
So
bearing fruit.
what was the time frame from when? So what was the time frame and when that happened relative to writing this book, The Abundance Project? When you hit the
Yeah.
darkest night of your soul, where was that relative to the law of, the book that you just wrote?
Well, again, ironically, like with Emergence, I wasn't ready to hand it in, but I had begun it.
You had
And
just begun the book, love, when
I
all this
had
stuff.
just begun developing it, and yeah, I wasn't deep into the actual full writing of it, but I was in the development of it. And so, in terms of
So at
the
the
idea was
lowest point
presenting
in
itself.
wait, I want to just understand
Yeah, sure.
conceptually. At the lowest point in your life, you're just writing this book on abundance.
Yeah, at the lowest point of my life, I was given the clear mission and the clear awareness and began developing it. I had not yet started the literal writing page one, page
Oh
two.
my God.
But, but before I was done with this lowest point, before I was truly clear, and who's to say I'm even completely clear? It's an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
I had begun to literally in earnest write the book. And so I was absolutely writing it while I was still working my way out of this dark night.
Wow.
And because it went on for a couple of years. I mean, really, really dark, really, really painful. And a lot of people in the world that experienced me would not have even known it because I still had a practice and I still showed up and I did my work as best I could. Um, And I still did good work. All the work I'd done in all those years still came through and delivered the value. But inside, I was I was crumbling, I was disintegrating.
Wow.
And, and that, but on the other side of it, I not only got everything back that I was willing to lose. If you try to save your life, you'll lose it. But if you're willing to lose your life for my sake, meaning the sake of the higher pattern of potential, die, be reborn, die, be reborn, you'll have it everlasting.
Mm.
So I got it all back,
Mm.
my home and then two homes, my family even deeper and richer and more connected. A relationship, a love of my life, a love affair of a lifetime that I'm in now,
Mm.
that I've been in now for almost a couple years, that is a love and a connection and a companionship and a meeting and a matching and a support like I had been praying for and working internally, but was seeing no evidence that it was happening for years. All of a sudden, all of those roots blossomed.
Mm.
And I'm experiencing a love like I've read in fairy tales, but
Mm.
actually it exists.
Yeah.
And and a level of my own personal power and capacity and genius and intuition, all of these fruits are blossoming now on the tree of my life.
Mm.
And I can see directly that it was that deep work that's now set me up for that next level. And I'm humble at a level I've never been before.
Mm.
That I know that the more I know just how little I know.
Mm.
And that keeps me humble and open. And so there's what I'm, all of this to say without even getting into the principles, the work works. And,
Right.
and I know that whenever I began to teach the next level, I'm going to be given an opportunity to prove it
Mm.
and to really embody it at another level. And so wherever people are struggling and suffering, I just want people to understand that when you understand the principles, and in this case, the abundance principle, and you know how to begin to align your life and yourself with it and practice it, it must begin to produce fruits. It may not produce them overnight, like the Chinese bamboo tree, which takes 5 years. And by year 5, nothing's happened. And if you don't want to kill the person that sold you those damn Chinese bamboo seeds and you stick with it, within a few weeks, it'll grow 8 to 9 stories.
Wow.
So it's the overnight success, 5 years in the making. Most people give up before that point, and
Mm.
so they never experience it, right?
Mm.
So I want people to understand that wherever you are, you're broke, your body's broken, your bank account's empty, you're alone, you're depressed, you've been through hell and back, you've been left, whatever it is, the potential in you, the power in you, the possibility in you, the actual thing that's trying to emerge in you is so much bigger and greater than that challenge.
Mm.
And it's not about, you won't just get it despite those challenges, but by embracing them, engaging them, wrestling those angels to get your blessing from them, you will become stronger, more resilient, more capable, more masterful as a result.
Mm.
For those of you that are teachers and authors and are aspiring thought leaders or healers, you'll also discover that your greatest message was hidden in those biggest messes.
Mm. Yeah,
Be able to bring
absolutely.
them into your life's work.
So tell us about the project that you're on. If folks would like to join your project right now, because you said you have 700 people, or are there going to be other classes that you'll be teaching folks who would like to
Yeah.
join?
Well, right now, depending on if we're listening, we're in the midst of what's called the Awakened Wealth Mastery Program.
Hmm.
And, but the Abundance Project book, you can get that obviously wherever books are sold. And, or if you go to the abundanceprojectbook.com,
Hmm.
you can get a copy through there, and then you will get $1,238 in real bonuses, coaching, live coaching, a mastermind, and support tools and programs to help you get real results, to help you create your own abundance project and begin to really learn how to master the law of abundance and be able to generate abundance in any area, regardless of the conditions you face. And then that's
Mm.
really why we've been telling this whole story. Regardless of the conditions, they cannot stop you from manifesting your abundance when you understand the principles and the practices, and you have the support to stay the course until you get those results.
Mm.
And that's That's why I want to give that to you. You can just get the book anywhere if you want, but if you want to make sure it doesn't become just shelf help and make your bookshelf look better, but actually you want to get results, go over to theabundanceprojectbook.com and make sure it's the Abundance Project book, because somebody else grabbed the
Oh,
abundanceproject.com and
brother.
that's not me. So you'll go there and go, where's the book? Where's Derek? I'm
Right.
not. So it's the abundanceprojectbook.com.
Projectbook.com. And if you buy it
And
from
while you're
there,
waiting,
then you can get
yeah,
all these other
exactly.
resources. And this the class that you're talking about, or those the 700 people that signed up for
That the
this?
700 people is a different class. That's the Awaken Wealth class. But
Okay,
this
got
one,
it.
you're able to get into the Abundance Project Mastermind, get into the group coaching, and I'll be able to support you specifically in discovering your abundance project and beginning to create it. And while you're waiting for the book, you can also go to iTunes and register for my free podcast by the same name, The Abundance Project, and be listening to trainings and teachings. And then when the book comes, you'll be ready to hit the ground running.
Excellent. Thanks. Showed the picture of the book again. The beautiful tree.
Yeah.
Yay! We've been talking to Derek Rydall about his book, The Abundance Project. Go to
It's real.
abundanceprojectbook.com. It's real. It's
I'm a
not
real
just
boy.
these two
I'm a real
pages.
author. I'm a real author.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
It's been such an honor. What a wonderful, unexpected, and very unique interview. And it's one of my favorites
It
because
is.
it's real. It's a real conversation about real stuff.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show and would love your support in any way by giving me comments below or to subscribe to the show or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.